Sisters and brothers, please welcome SEIU Local 2015 Officer Kim Yvonne and from Amador County, Sean Pagano.
What's up, 2015? Hey! I said, what's up, 2015? We're up. We ready?
Don't die on us now.
All right, we're gonna get started. Sean, what do we got going on?
Well, I got some pretty awesome, shocking facts for you. We got fact number 1. More black men are incarcerated today than were ever enslaved in 1850. Stomach that one for a moment. If African Americans and Hispanics were imprisoned at the same rate as the whites were, our prison population would decline by 50%.
Damn.
Now here's one that really disturbed me. Studies state that 1 in every 6 black men are in prison today. And if this trend keeps up, then we got 1 in every 3 black men that are born going to be in prison in the future. Now say you see, but now if you've got 3 little kids playing outside and you can guarantee one of them are going to prison, and then you got 6 little African Americans out there playing outside, and you can guarantee that 2 of them little boys are going into prison, that's some shocking facts.
Here's another fact. The criminal justice system, there's no justice in that system.
Not at all.
And especially for people who don't look like me and Sean. Because some of you might be looking up here and saying, why are 2 white women moderating a panel about an issue that largely impacts communities of color? And to me, it's simple. If we can reform the criminal justice system, it is the first step in dismantling racial injustice in this country. And that, brothers and sisters, takes all of us to do.
Yep.
So we're gonna do a little bit of a deep dive on this issue about criminal justice reform. And we've asked 3 incredible people to join us today, all who do work every day and see the impact of this broken system on our communities. So first, I'd like you to help me welcome to the stage Lynn Lyman. She's the California State Director of the Drug Policy Alliance. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you, thank you.
Next, we have Susan Burton. She's the Executive Director of A New Way of Life. Give it up for Sue. And lastly, we're joined by Betty Hung, who's the Policy Director of Asian Americans Advancing Justice. Welcome, Betty. So here's how we'd like to get started. If each of you would just take 5 minutes and let all of us know the incredible work you're doing every day. So we'll start with Lynn.
Okay, thank you. First of all, it's great to be here today in the House of Labor. I feel very at home here. Thank you for having us. I cut my organizing teeth in the labor movement, so this is a great place to be. And the organizing experience I got as a young person in the labor movement has really helped me and prepared me for this fight to reform our criminal justice system that I work in today. So the Drug Policy Alliance is a national organization trying to end the war on drugs. That's what we're trying to do. Yeah. We are trying to move drug use out of the criminal justice system entirely and put it in the public health system where it belongs. And you heard a little bit about the broader problem just a moment ago, but let me just say more about mass incarceration of today. This has never been done in human history. We incarcerate 5 million people in the United States, and another 5 million are on probation or parole. Roughly, we have 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's prisoners in this country. So to understand that there is no human society in recorded history that has incarcerated their own people at these rates. And there's currently no other country in the world doing this. The countries that incarcerate about half as many folks as we do, so next on the line, are Rwanda and Russia.
Wow.
So we're not keeping good company when it comes to the way that we treat people in this country. So California happens to be the largest prison system, state prison system in this country. We incarcerate over 200,000 people. We have 33 prisons, 123 jails. We are pipelining people into incarceration in this state, and we have been for many years. This all started with the war on drugs in the 1970s, 1980. If you look back at incarceration rates, in 1980, there was about 40,000 people incarcerated for drugs across the country. Right now, 500,000. Any given night in America, 500,000 people incarcerated for nothing more than possessing an illicit substance. 2/3 of them are Black and Latino. Now, some people say, well, that's because Blacks and Latinos must, use or sell more drugs than white folks. But it's not the case. Drug use and drug selling are the same across all racial lines. If anything, white people use and sell more marijuana than other folks. But for the most part, we'll call it even. So what we see happening is we see targeted enforcement in communities of color. So and then the collateral consequences, and Susan will talk about reentry in a moment, but the collateral consequences of a felony arrest and a felony conviction can be lifelong. All the basic civil rights that we all take for granted. We're talking about the ability to get a student loan, to get many professional licenses, to get many jobs, to get public housing, to vote. All of these collateral consequences can be taken away once you have that felony record. There's been some recent reforms in California. Prop 36 in 2012, that was 3 strikes reform. Some of you may have voted for it. And that essentially said, if your 3rd strike was petty, then you'll be eligible for release instead of being locked up for life. And I've met a lot of those 3rd strikers when they got out, and a lot of them were in for stealing pizza, stealing a $4 pair of socks. These people were in for life. And then that affected about 3,000 people in California. Prop 47 in 2014 was really the biggest thing to rattle the cages of mass incarceration.
That's right.
And it will be a demonstration model for the rest of the country. We have reduced our prison and jail population by the tens of thousands. We are doing record change events for, there's just in LA County, we have 700,000 people eligible for a record change under Prop 47 in LA County. And I really think that you all are part of this work. Thank you. And I know we're going to talk about solutions later, so I really want to talk about how we need to partner to make this change happen.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Susan.
Yes. First, I just need to thank SEIU for giving me my first chance, my first opportunity. So I left prison in 1996 for the very last time. And I fell again, and I found treatment. Yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I fell after leaving prison that last time, but I found treatment. After 100 days of treatment, I came back to my community as a healthcare worker, taking care of the seniors in our community. And I can remember Miss Andrews, the lady I took care of. She was a diabetic, and she started forming sores on her leg. And I went to a college, a school, and I felt if I was better educated, had more training, professional training, I would be able to take care of Miss Andrews a little bit better. And that school told me, no, you can't go here. with your criminal history, you will never ever become a nurse or a certified nurse's assistant, an RN. And it was devastating because all I wanted to do is to be a better caregiver. All I wanted to do was acquire skills that I could take care of Miss Andrews a little bit better. So Miss Andrews invited me to move into her home, and I moved into her home, and I got her up in the morning and put her to bed at night and cared for her. But eventually, she had to go into a nursing home, and they amputated her leg. And I wonder if I'd have got the type of training that I needed, the type of training that I was seeking, if that would have prevented her from being, her leg being amputated. While I was with Miss Andrews, I was able to save all my money, all my resources, all my income. And you know, when they told me I couldn't be a nurse or be in the medical field, you know, I said, I know what I can do. I had been learning about mass incarceration and the incarceration of so many women that actually needed health care, needed treatment instead of punishment in prison. You know. So I took that savings and I got a small house in South LA. And that house was called a New Way of Life Reentry Project. And I would go down to the bus station. I'd get up, and it was a little 3-bedroom house, and I'd get up and go down to the bus station, and women getting off that bus, you know, they were my friends, you know, they were my community. And I'd say, hey girl, you know, I have a house over here. You know, would you like to come to a New Way of Life? It's drug and alcohol free, and we created a community. So. That's because SEIU gave me a chance. You know, and you know, it's because I took that chance and nurtured that chance and built something upon that opportunity. So here, 18 years later, 17 years later, we've helped over 900 women come into, we have multiple homes now. And over 900 women and hundreds of children have lived in those homes. But to more, I have a team of lawyers now. Yeah. 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 I say a team of lawyers. We have 6 lawyers on staff there. And if they tell you you can't go to school or you can't have a healthcare license, you come see us, we'll take care of it free. Yeah. Yeah. So if they tell you you can't get a license, you know, you denied. If you need an expungement, if you need Prop 47, if you have some employment stuff around being a former prisoner, having a criminal history, you come see us, we'll do it free.
Great.
Because the past should not define your future. So we are not throwaway people. We deserve an opportunity to be useful, accountable, and responsible in our communities. So that's what we do. We're paying it forward. We're all paying it forward, taking care of our community. So I'm just happy to be here. And I know without that first, what I know is I don't know what would have happened without that first opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, so much.
Yeah.
Betty?
I also want to thank SEIU Local 2015 for the opportunity, and it's such an honor to be on this stage with such amazing, powerful women and to be in the room with all of you. When I look out, I see California. This is California.
Right
you
on.
are the future of what our state really is. So I am the daughter of immigrants from Taiwan, and when my parents first came here in 1968, they didn't have any money, and so my mom, one of the jobs she worked was actually in a nursing home. And to this day, she still says that it is the hardest job that she ever had. And so I just want to express how much respect I have for what each of you do every single day. Really caring and nurturing, and without the work that you do, there would be so many people who would be suffering. So I just want to say thank you. You know, in thinking about mass incarceration and Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders, I'm going to use the acronym ANHPI for short. You know, oftentimes people ask us, well, what does mass incarceration have to do with Asian Americans, with APIs? And the reality is that mass incarceration is a system that is racist, that is driven by corporate greed, corporations that profit by building prisons and incarcerating people, and that feeds off the criminalization of all people of color. And it is this system of corporate exploitation and racism that is so intertwined in the foundation of mass incarceration that we, all of us in this society, all of us in the US, have to stand up against. Yes. And so I feel like as an Asian American, if I really care about justice and fairness and fighting racism, then I also have to stand up to fight against mass incarceration.
Yeah.
So, you know, we recently at Asian Americans Advancing Justice LA, my colleague Paul Jung, who couldn't be here today, he is spearheading a new criminal justice reform initiative that we have. And Paul often talks about how when he was about 12 years old, his brother was arrested and convicted and sent to prison, and he's still there many years later. And so Paul has helped us to partner with other organizations like Lynn's and Susan's in really making sure that we lift up the awareness that APIs, Asian Americans, all Pacific Islanders, Native Hawaiians, also are impacted by mass incarceration. I just want to share a few of the statistics to counter the invisibility of ANHPIs when it comes to criminal justice. In the 1990s, the ANHPI prisoner population actually increased by 250%. And you know, in the system, we're categorized as other. We're not even counted as Asian or Pacific Islander or Native Hawaiian. We're just lumped into the other category. So nationally, in the other category, others are 11% of female prisoners nationally and 9% of prisoners overall. And I also want to note that ANHPI youth oftentimes are profiled and stereotyped as gang members. So for example, over a 20-year period from 1977 to 1997, arrests of ANHPI youth in the US increased by over 700%. So in California, nearly 2/3 of ANHPI prisoners are immigrants or refugees, disproportionately Southeast Asian, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, and Filipino. And so we often talk about there's a school to prisons to deportation pipeline that disproportionately impacts Southeast Asians and Pacific Islanders. In 1996, there were laws that were passed that, the IRA laws or immigration laws that essentially cause people who have been convicted of certain even non-violent offenses, and even if you're a green card holder, right? Even if you have a green card, those offenses make it mandatory for you to be deported. Judges don't have any sentencing discretion. So because of these 1996 laws, what we've seen is an increase in the rate of deportations, especially of Southeast Asians. Since 1998, over 15,000 Southeast Asians have received final orders of deportation. Over 12,000 of those 15,000 orders of deportation were based on old criminal records. Things like having like drug possession, right? Even it was many, many years ago, people face deportation and have been deported. And Southeast Asians are actually 3 to 4 times more likely to be deported for old convictions than any other immigrant group. So I share this because I know in the ANHPI community, we rarely talk about incarceration. But we have to, because not only is it impacting ANHPIs who are incarcerated or formerly incarcerated, it is, as I mentioned, part of a system that criminalizes people of color, that disproportionately locks up Blacks and Latinos, and that is at its heart unjust. In California since 1980, 22 prisons have been built and only 1 University of California, UC campus.
That's right.
What is wrong with the picture here? So if we care about the future of California, if we care about our children and education and good living wage jobs and healthy communities, then we have to stop locking people up.
Yeah.
We have to dismantle mass incarceration. And as an Asian American community, we stand together, all of us, to fight for justice and true equity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Betty.
That was too long.
So we want to start a dialogue. I know Sean has a question she wants to ask you, and then we're going to open it up to our members from the floor. And we'd love if you just take like 2 quick minutes to respond to Sean's question, then we're going to go to our members. Sean?
Yeah, thank you, Kim. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Great job. So we've seen how this movement in Black Lives Matters and can bring awareness and urgency to this issue. But what else can we do? What action can we be taking to ensure that our criminal justice system undergoes the reform that is necessary?
Just open it up to whoever wants to start answering.
Well, I'll jump in.
Sure.
I think that there's 3 things that we can do just to make this simple. 3 big things. The first thing is modify our personal behavior. So first of all, educate yourself, understand these issues, and then think about how do we stigmatize incarcerated people. Do you use the word ex-con, ex-felon? We've eliminated that language from our
That's right.
vocabulary, right? We'll talk about formerly incarcerated people. So how do we just in our day-to-day life talk about people? Oh, he looks like a drug dealer. So really think about internally, personal transformation. The second way is the media. And there's a lot of misinformation in the media, right? Do we let them just get away with it? No, we need to do letters to the editor. We need to call into these talk shows where they're talking about our young brothers and sisters in ways that are despicable. A lot we can do through pushing back on the media narrative. And then third, where I spend most of my time, is changing laws and systems. And there's so much to do in this country to change the laws.
Thank you, Lynn. Susan or Betty?
Yeah, when I was in prison, I never had a problem getting a job. I was always assigned a job. And the types of jobs that I was assigned sometimes had to do with the healthcare field. So I can make 10 cents an hour being a nurse's aide inside of a prison. But I couldn't come to the community and be trained and become a nurse's aide. So you know what I'm talking about if you've been there. You had one of them 10, 15, 20, 16, 18 cent an hour job. So we need to look at the exploitation of prison labor and end the exploitation of prison labor. Prison should be a place that we rehabilitate people, not punish and exploit the labor there. So they have these jobs where we are tending to the terminally ill people for 10, 15 cents an hour, 15 if you're on the high end. So we need to end. I want to ask SEIU to look at the exploitation of prisoners in the prison healthcare system. You know, we just had a big decision, well, a few years back, we had a decision by the federal government to look at the healthcare system in prisons because so many people were dying as a result of substandard healthcare. So, you know, there's a whole lot there, but the exploitation of healthcare prison labor inside of our prisons in California and across this nation needs to be looked at. So that's what we can do, and I'm gonna ask SEIU to look at that.
Yeah, we'll look at it.
All right. All right.
Hey, because look, we're a labor movement, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And do we allow one person to be exploited?
No.
Not one person to be exploited.
Yeah.
That's right, because an injury to one is an injury to...
Yeah.
Betty?
I love that.
It's an oldie, but good.
And I think it's universal, right? I think, so I actually want to speak to the Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders in the room in terms of what we can do to really also fight for criminal justice reform and against mass incarceration. I think the first is that we need to stop being silent about it. Right? We have to address the stigma and the shame and really unravel what's really happening. Yeah. Right? And recognize that it is this unjust system that criminalizes people and that is profiting, and start having a dialogue and awareness in our communities. When it comes to Prop 47, there are about 20,000 ANHPIs eligible for Prop 47 relief, right? And yet we, you know, and we've been trying to work on that and to reach out to people, but unless we stop being silent, our communities are going to continue to suffer. When right now we're at this pivotal moment in this state and in this nation to really have transformation. Yeah. Right? To really shift the whole narrative and shift the structure so that people no longer see incarceration as a solution, but really as the heart of the problem. I just want to add that I think another really important thing that we can do, and this is more like, you know, what can I as a person, right, in my normal, regular daily life do? I think that part of it is we need to get to know each other, right? I think, for example, like everyone in this room, how do we get to know each other, learn about each other, share our stories? The fact is, like, my family and I would not be here in the US, but for the civil rights movement led by African Americans. And not a lot of folks know that, but prior to 1965, there were national origins quotas in place. So that other than from Western Europe, it was basically really difficult for anyone from anywhere else in the world to immigrate to the US because of these quotas. It was only because of the civil rights movement led by African Americans that there was awareness that their immigration laws were also racist. And so that's why the immigration laws changed in 1965, and for the first time, really, Asians could immigrate to the US, right? Prior to that, there was the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, where Chinese were not allowed to immigrate. And until 1952, Asians could not even become naturalized citizens in the US. So because of African Americans' courage and leadership in organizing the civil rights movement, right, that led to the changes in 1965 that have led to my family and me and many other Asian Americans being in the US. We have to tell those histories, right, and those stories, and understand how all of our destinies and our futures are interconnected, and really pay respect to each other.
Nice. Great.
Nice.
Thank you, Betty. So now we're going to open it up. We have some members at the mic, so I'm going to ask we have a member here.
Hello, my name is Dr. Emily, and I am a healthcare worker. And I've listened to all of you speak here on the panel, and what I'd like to see is that you all work together to start at the head addressing the problem. And I don't know how many people in this room recognize that building prisons is about economics. It is millions of dollars made every time one of us is sent on that bus to prison.
The bus, the
Every
boat,
time
the bus, the boat.
one of us is back and forth to court, the big wigs make money. The judges, the prosecutors, and everyone involved have stock in those prisons that have been newly built that the panel mentioned. So it starts at the head. The judges need to be accountable for all this long time that they're putting on African Americans and people of color. They need to be held accountable for this long-term prison unfair sentences that they're giving to people of color. And until we start at the top and start holding them accountable for all this bogus time they're giving us, knowing it's unfair, then we will not be able to address all of this racism with all of our people going to prison. So I'd like to see SEIU connect with these people here on the panel and other attorneys to address the head. Because when you start at the head, everything else will fall in line.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone want to comment on what the sister said?
So, you know, we all do work together. You know, all of us up here, we do work together, but I agree with you. And what I want to ask each and every one of you out there, when you go to the ballot and you see a judge that's being elected, do you know anything about that judge? Well, this year, we're going to do some research. We're going to hold some convenings. We're going to have some panels. And we're going to let them judges who we are electing know that we are here and we're watching and we want to end mass incarceration.
That's a great point, Susan.
Do you hear me now? I mean, they are on the ballot, and we can have an effect on those judges that we are electing. We can let them know that we want to end mass incarceration.
That's a great point. How many people here let it ride on the ballot when it comes to those judges? Yeah.
Girl, you better vote.
Right.
Okay, all right, so
But that's a great point.
We need to bring them together, and I'd like to work with SEIU, Drug Policy Line in the Asian community. Bring them judges forward. Let's see who they are.
Yeah.
That's a great
Let's organize some community panels with them.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to come, then they can't sit. But let them know what we want as a community.
Right.
Put them in, take them out. Put them in, take them out.
Thank you, Susan, for those comments. Anybody? We have members in the back mics. I just want to make sure we're rotating. Over in the corner.
I'm going to be as brief as I possibly can. I promise you I will. But I need to say this. I was trying to be quiet. In order to exact prison reform, we're going to have to do what President Butler said. We're going to have to start with the foundation. The foundation is the 13th Amendment of the Constitution. If you ever read the language in the preamble of the Constitution, it says, we the people to form a more, which means this union isn't perfect. Fast forward, the 13th Amendment says slavery is abolished except for if you are incarcerated.
That's right.
So, anything, we need to ask all of our judicial officials to consider the ratification of the 13th Amendment.
Let's do it.
All right, Mr.
Let's
Field.
do it. I agree.
We have other folks in the back. I see a sister.
Hi. What I'm about to say, I'm going to say it with some emotion. I would like SEIU to begin conversations with the trades. Tell the plumbers, the electricians, and everybody else that's labor to open their doors, give the current econs that we have now a trade, a skill, so they can sustain their families. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone want to react to this, to the sister's comment?
She said she want SEIU to do that.
I know. I thought we were a team. We're doing it together.
We ain't together when she heard that.
You got the muscle there.
So we do have to talk. Look, this is an issue, and it was clear from what Lynn and Susan and Betty have laid out, and several of you have already expressed. This is an issue that is systematic.
Yeah.
There's not one thing we have to do, there's many things we have to do. And part of what the sister's last comment was, or offerings, is how do we make sure we are using the very movement we're part of to broaden the many people who should be part of that solution. So I wanted to appreciate that. Who's next?
Me? This is Peggy. I'm from Eureka, California. And I would like somebody up there to talk about the Correctional Corporation of America. And I would like everyone in this room to know about the Correctional Corporation of America and how we know who's making a profit off of this system, who they're donating their political bucks to, and how we can change that. Thank you.
Sure, Lynn's going to respond to that.
I was hoping somebody was going to bring up the private prison industry, because that is the worst part of mass incarceration. Thank you to the gentleman who mentioned the 13th Amendment. And just to put that in context, Michelle Alexander, who is one of the leaders in this movement, calls mass incarceration the new Jim Crow, right? We had slavery, we had Jim Crow, now we have the new Jim Crow. But the private prison industry is really driving the building boom. And what's happened, so there's the Correction Corporations of America and there's reentry. Both of them get huge contracts from California. Governor Brown has overseen the biggest expansion of use of private prisons in California in our history. So when the woman who was talking about accountability with the judges, I think we need to go all the way to the top and hold Governor Brown accountable for the way he has grown
the private prison industry.
He has grown the private prison industry. But here's what's the scariest thing, right? The scariest thing about those folks is that, remember, this is about a profit margin for them. And so they're watching the public debate and the public sort of a conversation and seeing that Americans aren't so supportive of mass incarceration anymore. And so what they're doing is they're moving their resources into building immigrant detention centers because they know Americans still like to lock up immigrants. And secondly, they're moving into the reentry business, the kind of amazing work that community groups like Susan does on the ground. Reentry Co., they're trying to build one in South LA, they have one in Lancaster, they're all over the state.
They're controlling the contracts in which providers are providing housing under. I mean, they're moving in.
They're moving in, so it's not just, you know, the private prisons for regular incarceration. You really need to look at the trend for immigrants and the trend in reentry. And I think we need a law in California that says we will not contract with a private prison or their subsidiaries.
Great, thank you, Lynn. So we have time for one more question, and we're going to move to a mic where no one's spoken yet.
Hello?
That lady's been there a long time. She's been waiting a long time.
The hell?
Hi, my name is Patsy, and I am a provider. Also, I have been doing this for 7 years. And as the lady was speaking in the middle, she was saying about prison and changing our lives. You know, I did 20 years in prison. I've been out for 9, and I've been doing in-home care since then. It just have changed my life tremendously.
That's right.
And I want to commend you on your new life. You might have never seen me, but I have been to that place. and I bring people there.
Oh, you been a New Way of Life?
Yes, I have, ma'am.
I can't see you back there.
And I want to say thank you.
You're welcome, baby.
You know, it's not easy for us to get out of prison and get started back on something good for us. I am so happy that I have IHSS today. I try to apply for other jobs, and the first thing they throw in my face is my background. So I'm trying to do something different to change that.
That's right.
You know, I'm trying to get my record sponged. I'm going back to school. I'm trying to change my life so I can be better. Thank you.
Thank you, sister, for that. That is the last question we have time to take, but it was a powerful comment about every life is a valuable possession in our society, and we are all gonna fall down, every single one of us. And we have to be sure that we're part of a community that believes that people have the right to get back up.
And give that hand up.
And get back in.
And give that hand up to each other.
And I want to thank these three amazing women for joining us today. If we can give them a round of applause and appreciation.
Great. Great.
I think they have.
I don't have a purple coat.
We're going to get you one, Susan.
I need my purple coat. I wear it proudly. I need my purple jacket.
We'll make sure you get one, Susan. We'll get all of you. We're one family now.
That's
There's
right.
no looking back.
Yeah.
We really do want to appreciate your powerful stories, your incredible facts, which I think were very enlightening. I mean, education is the key. That's how we get to empowerment, right?
Yeah.
And that's how we're able to lead more effectively.
That's right.
So I want to say thank you. And now we got to sit with this. We want to take 15 minutes. What did we hear from these women, from the voices of our members? What did we hear about this criminal justice system? And how do we see its impact in our own communities? So we want you to take 15 minutes and talk about that at your tables. Thank you, ladies, very much.
Thank you.